20 minutes after my hairdresser secretly called the police while cutting my hair, I watched officers arrest my boyfriend for stalking me and realized the man I'd been living with for 6 months had installed cameras in every room of my apartment. I'm Jenna Mitchell. I'm 26 years old. I teach 2nd grade at Lincoln Elementary, and up until that Saturday in October, I thought I was in a loving relationship with a man who just cared about me a lot. I thought his constant texting was sweet. I thought his need to know where I was came from a place of concern. I thought I knew what love looked like. I was so incredibly wrong. My hairdresser Tasha saw what I couldn't see. She recognized danger when I was calling it devotion, and she made a choice that saved my life before I even knew my life needed saving. If you want to know how a regular hair appointment turned into the moment I discovered I was being watched every second of every day, make sure you subscribe and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. It was 2:30 on a Saturday afternoon, and I was so ready for my hair appointment that I'd been counting down the hours. I teach 2nd grade, which means my week had been filled with 7-year-olds, parent-teacher conferences, and a mountain of report cards that seemed to multiply overnight. By Friday evening, I was exhausted. All I wanted was 2 hours of sitting still, flipping through magazines, and letting someone else take care of me for a change. My boyfriend Kyle had been sweet about it that morning. He made me coffee, kissed me goodbye, and told me to enjoy my appointment. We'd been together for 6 months and living together for 3, and things had been going really well lately. Sure, he texted a lot during the day, but I told myself that was just because he missed me. Sure, he wanted to know where I was most of the time, but that was just him being protective, right? My little sister Brooke had made some comments about Kyle being too intense, but I'd brushed her off. She was 23 and still in college. She didn't understand how adult relationships worked. She didn't get that when someone really loves you, they want to be involved in your life. I parked on the street outside Bloom's Salon a little before 2:30. It's this cozy place downtown that I've been going to for 2 years. The owner, Tasha, is around 30 and has become more than just my hairdresser. She's someone I actually look forward to seeing, someone who asks about my students and remembers the stories I tell. When I walked in, the bell above the door chimed, and Tasha greeted me with a big smile and a hug. The salon smelled like vanilla and hair products, and there were 3 other stylists working with clients. Pop music played softly from speakers in the ceiling. Everything felt normal and comfortable and safe. Tasha settled me into her chair and draped the black cape around my shoulders. We caught up while she mixed the highlight color. I told her about the chaos of parent-teacher conferences, and she told me about the vacation to Mexico she was planning for next month. "How's Kyle?" she asked casually, combing through my hair to section it. "He's great. Really great. Living together has been an adjustment, but we're figuring it out." Tasha smiled, but didn't say anything right away. I noticed something flicker across her face, just for a second, but then it was gone, and she was back to her usual cheerful self. She started applying the highlights, working methodically through sections of my hair. We talked about random things, a new Italian restaurant that had opened nearby, the Halloween decorations appearing in all the store windows, her niece's upcoming birthday party, normal conversation between 2 people who'd known each other for a while. I pulled out my phone to check my messages while the color was processing. 3 texts from Kyle were waiting for me. "Hey babe, where are you? Haven't heard from you. Everything okay? Text me back, please." I felt that familiar little flutter of guilt in my stomach. Had I forgotten to tell him where I was going? No, I definitely mentioned the hair appointment this morning, but he probably just forgot. I typed back quickly. "At the salon getting my hair done. Should be finished around 5. Love you." His response came through within seconds. "Which salon? I might stop by and see you." I sent him the address, not thinking anything of it. He was probably just bored at home and wanted to grab coffee nearby or something. "Salon visit from the boyfriend?" Tasha said, and I looked up to see her reading over my shoulder. "Maybe. He might stop by." I put my phone face up on the counter in front of me so I could see if he texted again. Tasha nodded but didn't comment. She kept working on my hair, and I went back to scrolling through social media, half paying attention to the conversation happening at the next styling station. About 20 minutes passed. Tasha was rinsing out the first round of color at the sink, her hands moving through my hair with warm water when I felt my phone buzz on the counter. I couldn't reach it with my head tilted back into the sink, but I saw Kyle's name flash on the screen. When we got back to the styling chair, I checked the message. "I'm nearby. Be there in a few minutes." I showed Tasha. "Looks like he's actually coming." She glanced at the message, then at me, and something shifted in her expression. Her usual warm smile became a little more fixed, a little less natural. "That's nice," she said, but her voice sounded strange. She started sectioning my hair for the next round of highlights, but I noticed she kept glancing toward the big front windows of the salon. Her hands were still working on my hair, but her attention was somewhere else. "Everything okay, Tasha?" I asked, watching her in the mirror. "Yeah, fine. Just concentrating." But she didn't sound fine. She sounded tense. Then she did something I didn't expect. She picked up my phone from the counter, opened the Notes app, and started typing something. She angled the screen so I could see it in the mirror, while still appearing to focus on my hair. My heart started beating faster as I read what she'd written. "Your boyfriend is standing across the street watching us through the window. Don't react. Act completely normal." I stared at the words on my phone screen, my brain refusing to process what I was reading. This had to be a joke. Maybe Tasha was messing with me, trying to be funny. Kyle wouldn't stand across the street watching me through a salon window like some kind of creep. That was insane. That was something from a movie, not something that happened in real life. I started to laugh, reaching for my phone to type back something like "very funny." But Tasha gently moved it away from my reach and kept typing. "I'm serious. Gray hoodie, standing by the coffee shop entrance. He's been there since before you texted him the address. He's not looking at his phone. He's not doing anything except staring at this salon." My hands started shaking. The laughing feeling disappeared completely, replaced by something cold and heavy in my stomach. I wanted to turn around and look out the window, to prove that Tasha was wrong, that she was seeing someone who just looked like Kyle. But her hand pressed down firmly on my shoulder, keeping me facing forward toward the mirror. "Don't look," she whispered, so quietly I almost didn't hear her over the music and the other conversations happening around us. "Just trust me. Keep looking at the mirror like we're having a normal conversation about your hair." My reflection stared back at me, and I looked terrified. My face had gone pale, my eyes too wide. I forced myself to take a breath and tried to arrange my features into something that looked normal, but I don't think I succeeded. Tasha moved to stand between me and the window, blocking the view from outside. She picked up my phone again and typed quickly. "Has he been controlling? Does he text you constantly? Does he always want to know where you are? Does he check your phone?" I felt like someone had dumped ice water over my head. Yes, all of those things. But I'd been telling myself it was normal, that he just cared about me, that it meant he loved me. Lots of couples stayed in close contact throughout the day, right? Lots of boyfriends wanted to know their girlfriends were safe. That wasn't controlling. That was just caring. Except now someone was pointing it out, and suddenly it didn't sound normal at all. I took the phone with trembling hands and typed back. "He texts a lot when I'm not with him. He likes to know where I am, but he's just worried about me. He wants to make sure I'm safe." Even as I typed it, the words felt hollow. I watched Tasha read my response, and her jaw tightened. She typed back immediately. "That's not normal. And standing across the street watching you through a window is definitely not normal. I'm calling the police right now." Panic shot through me like electricity. "No, please don't. You're making too big a deal out of this. Maybe it's not even him. Maybe it just looks like him from here." But even as I said it, I knew I was lying to myself. I knew it was him because of how he'd texted me the second I arrived at the salon, because of the way he'd asked which salon specifically, because he'd said he might stop by, but instead he was standing across the street, watching me like I was some kind of show he'd paid to see. Tasha leaned down close to my ear, her voice barely audible. "Jenna, I've been cutting hair for 10 years. I've seen a lot of things. I've had clients come in trying to hide bruises with makeup. I've had women sit in my chair and make excuses for partners who won't let them cut their hair or change their style. I've seen controlling relationships before, and this is what they look like at the beginning. This surveillance, this constant checking in, this need to know where you are every second. It doesn't get better. It gets worse. I felt tears starting to burn behind my eyes. I didn't want this to be real. I didn't want my relationship to be the kind of thing that concerned hairdressers called the police about. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted Tasha to be overreacting. But somewhere deep down, in a place I'd been ignoring for months, I knew she was right. If you won't call them, I will, Tasha said firmly, because I'm not going to watch you leave here with someone who's stalking you and then read about something terrible happening to you next week. I care about you too much for that. She walked toward the back office before I could stop her, her phone already in her hand. I sat frozen in the chair, surrounded by the normal sounds of the salon, hair dryers humming, other stylists chatting with their clients, pop music playing overhead, someone laughing at the reception desk. Everything was so ordinary, so regular, and yet my entire world was cracking apart. I finally let myself look at the window's reflection in the mirror, and there he was, Kyle, standing across the street in his gray hoodie, hands in his pockets, staring directly at the salon, not at a menu outside the coffee shop, not at his phone, not at the people walking past him on the sidewalk, just at the salon, just at me. How long had he been standing there? Had he followed me here? Did he do this other times when I thought I was alone? My phone buzzed on the counter. Another text from Kyle. I can see you ignoring me. Why won't you look at me? He knew I could see him. He was acknowledging it. He wasn't even pretending this was normal anymore. Tasha came back from the office, her face calm, but her eyes deadly serious. She picked up my phone and typed another message in the Notes app. Police are coming. I told them there's a stalking situation in progress. They'll be here in less than 10 minutes. You need to stay in this chair and keep acting like everything is normal. Can you do that? I stared at the words, my whole body shaking. Part of me wanted to scream at her that she was overreacting, that she'd made a huge mistake, that Kyle was going to be so angry when police showed up for no reason. But another part of me, the part that had been quietly uncomfortable for months, knew she'd done the right thing. I nodded slowly, and Tasha squeezed my shoulder before going back to working on my hair like nothing was happening. She started blow-drying the sections she'd just finished, the noise filling the space between us so we didn't have to pretend to have a conversation. My mind was racing through everything, seeing my relationship with Kyle in a completely different light now. The way he'd insisted on having my phone passcode in case of emergencies. The way he always seemed to know where I was, even when I hadn't told him specifically. The time he'd shown up at the grocery store when I'd said I was running errands, claiming it was just a coincidence. The way he'd slowly started commenting on my friendships, suggesting that certain people weren't good for me, weren't really my friends. The way plans with Brooke always seemed to end with Kyle calling multiple times, saying he missed me, asking when I'd be home. I'd explained every single one of these things away. I'd told myself I was lucky to have someone who cared so much, someone who wanted to be close to me, someone who thought about me all the time. I looked at my phone again. Kyle had sent 3 more texts. Jenna, I know you can see these. Why are you being like this? I just wanted to surprise you, and you're acting weird. Acting weird. I was acting weird because my boyfriend was standing across the street staring at me through a window and getting angry that I wasn't acknowledging him. How had I gotten here? How had I become the kind of person who thought this behavior was acceptable? Tasha caught my eye in the mirror and typed quickly on my phone again. Don't respond to him. Let him think you're just focused on your hair appointment. Police will handle it. I put the phone face down on the counter, my hands still trembling. Through the mirror, I could see Kyle across the street, and his body language had changed. He looked agitated now, shifting his weight from foot to foot, checking his phone constantly, staring at the salon with an intensity that made my skin crawl. How had I ever thought this man loved me? This wasn't love. This was obsession. Tasha kept working on my hair, moving through the motions of a normal appointment while both of us watched the street through the mirror. 5 minutes passed, then 7. Other clients came and went from the salon, completely unaware of the drama unfolding in Tasha's chair. The stylist next to us was talking to her client about vacation plans. The receptionist was booking appointments for next week. Everything was so normal except for the fact that police were on their way and said he wanted us to do a steps challenge together, make fitness a couples activity. He always seemed to know my step count before I even checked it myself. He'd comment on my sleep patterns, ask why I'd been awake at 2 a.m. when I'd gotten up to use the bathroom. I'd thought the app just sent notifications to both of us, but now a horrible suspicion was forming. He gave me a fitness tracker last month, I said slowly, and he knows things about my activity that I never tell him. But those apps share data between users, right? That's normal? The two officers exchanged a look that made my blood run cold. Officer Ramirez spoke carefully. Ms. Mitchell, would you be willing to let us examine your phone and that fitness tracker? And if you're comfortable with it, we'd like to have a technical specialist look at your apartment for any unauthorized surveillance equipment. Surveillance equipment. The word sounded so extreme, so dramatic. That was something that happened in spy movies, not to elementary school teachers in regular relationships. But I heard myself saying yes, agreeing to let them search my phone, my apartment, my life. Kyle was still across the street with another officer who'd arrived as backup. I could see him through the window, gesturing wildly, clearly angry and trying to explain himself. An hour later, I was sitting in my own apartment with Officer Ramirez, Detective Marcus Stone, who'd been called in, and a technical specialist named Aaron who was moving through my rooms with equipment I didn't understand. Tasha had closed her salon early and come with me, refusing to let me be alone. My sister Brooke was on her way, driving faster than she probably should have been. The technical specialist found the first camera hidden inside the smoke detector in my living room. I watched him carefully remove it, place it in an evidence bag, and I felt like I was going to be sick. Then he found another one inside my bedroom alarm clock, the clock that sat on my nightstand facing my bed. A third camera was hidden in the bathroom air vent, positioned to see the shower. 4 cameras total, all recording everything, all connected to an app on Kyle's phone that let him watch me whenever he wanted. Aaron showed me the tracking software on my phone, disguised as a system update that Kyle had installed one night when I was sleeping. Every text I sent, every call I made, every website I visited, all of it was being monitored. The fitness tracker was sending my exact location to Kyle every 15 minutes, creating a detailed map of everywhere I went. Detective Stone sat down across from me at my kitchen table, his expression grave. Ms. Mitchell, I need to tell you something. Kyle Brennan has a prior conviction for stalking from 3 years ago in Oregon. A woman he was dating filed a restraining order against him. He violated it twice and served 6 months in county jail. The room started spinning. But he told me he'd never had a serious relationship before me. He said I was his first real girlfriend. Detective Stone shook his head. He lied. And based on what we're finding in your apartment, he's escalated his behavior significantly since his last conviction. This many cameras, this level of monitoring, this suggests he was building towards something more serious. We're getting a warrant to search his devices right now. But Jenna, I need you to understand something clearly. You are not safe with this person. What he's doing isn't love. It's not protection. It's obsession and control. And men like this don't stop on their own. They escalate. Tasha was sitting next to me, and she grabbed my hand as tears started pouring down my face. I'd been living with him, sleeping next to him, trusting him, and the whole time he'd been watching me like I was some kind of experiment, some kind of possession he needed to monitor every second. Detective Stone pulled out his laptop and turned it toward me. We accessed some preliminary data from the cameras remotely with a warrant. Jenna, he's been recording you for at least 2 months, possibly longer. He has hundreds of hours of footage. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what I was hearing. 2 months of my life, my private moments, my conversations with Brooke when I thought I was alone, everything captured and saved and watched by someone I trusted completely. I moved out of that apartment that same night and went to stay with Brooke. I couldn't bear the thought of sleeping there, couldn't stop thinking about those cameras watching me in my most private moments, couldn't shake the feeling that Kyle could somehow still see me, even though Detective Stone assured me all the devices had been removed. For the next 3 weeks, I lived out of a suitcase in Brooke's spare bedroom while police completed their investigation. She never made me feel like a burden, never said the words I knew she was thinking, that she'd warned me about Kyle from the beginning. Instead, she just held me when I cried and helped me start putting my life back together piece by piece. The full scope of what Kyle had done became clear over the following days. Police found journals on his laptop detailing his plans for me, plans that made my skin crawl. He'd been researching how to convince me to quit my teaching job, how to isolate me from my family, how to make me completely dependent on him so I'd have nowhere to go. He had folders on his computer filled with photos he'd taken of me without my knowledge, screenshots of private text conversations with friends, detailed notes about my daily routines, down to what time I usually woke up and what I ate for breakfast. Detective Stone told me that Kyle fit the profile of someone who would eventually escalate to violence, that the surveillance phase almost always led to physical harm. They found searches on his computer about how to disable phone location services so no one could find someone, how to buy burner phones that couldn't be traced, even research about which states had the weakest missing persons investigation protocols. I threw up when Detective Stone told me that last part. The restraining order was granted immediately, and Kyle was charged with multiple felonies, including stalking, unlawful surveillance, unauthorized recording, and violation of privacy. Because of his prior conviction in Oregon, the judge set his bail extremely high. He sat in jail for 2 months before his family could scrape together enough money to post bond, and by then, the evidence against him was overwhelming. His public defender tried to argue that Kyle had mental health issues, that he was obsessed but not dangerous, but the prosecution presented the searches about missing persons and burner phones, and the judge wasn't buying it. Kyle eventually took a plea deal to avoid going to trial, 4 years in prison, followed by 10 years of probation and a permanent restraining order. I had to write a victim impact statement, and I read it in court with my voice shaking but clear. You made me doubt myself. You made me believe that constant monitoring was caring, that controlling my life was protection, that cutting me off from people who loved me was intimacy. You violated my privacy in the most horrible ways possible. You stole my sense of safety in my own home, but you didn't break me. You taught me to see danger clearly, to trust the people who see what I can't see, and to never again mistake obsession for love. Kyle didn't look at me once during the entire statement. 8 months have passed since that Saturday at the salon. I'm living in a new apartment in a different part of town, an address that Kyle doesn't know and can never know. I installed my own security system. I check for cameras regularly, and I'm hyper-aware of my surroundings in ways I never was before. Some people might call it paranoid, but I call it smart. I know now what danger looks like when it pretends to be devotion. I'm back in therapy, working through trust issues and trauma that I'll probably be processing for years. I've reconnected with friends I'd drifted away from during those 6 months with Kyle, and I'm slowly learning how to be in public spaces without constantly looking over my shoulder. I volunteer now at a women's shelter, sharing my story with other survivors, helping them recognize the warning signs I missed for so long. Tasha and I have become real friends, not just hairdresser and client. She saved my life that day by trusting her instincts and making a phone call that I was too scared to make myself. She told me later that she'd almost talked herself out of it, almost convinced herself she was overreacting and being dramatic, but she'd read too many news stories about women who didn't get help in time, and she refused to let me become one of those statistics. I go back to Bloom Salon every 6 weeks, and every time Tasha hugs me and asks how I'm really doing, not the polite surface answer, but the real truth. And I tell her, because she's earned that honesty. My sister Brooke moved closer to me after everything happened, transferring to a college nearby so she could be around more often. She checks in on me constantly, but not in the suffocating way Kyle did. Her check-ins feel like love, not surveillance. There's a difference, and now I know how to tell them apart. The hardest lesson I learned is that abuse doesn't always announce itself with violence. Sometimes it starts with someone who seems too good to be true, someone who showers you with attention and affection until you're drowning in it. Sometimes it starts with excessive love that slowly transforms into excessive control. Sometimes it starts with a partner who wants to know where you are for safety until you realize you can't go anywhere without permission. The red flags were there from the beginning, but I'd been taught that love means someone caring about you constantly, someone wanting to be with you all the time, someone who gets jealous because they value you so much. I learned the hard way that real love doesn't monitor or control or install hidden cameras. Real love trusts. Real love respects boundaries. Real love doesn't track your every movement and watch you when you think you're alone. I think about that October afternoon constantly, about how different my life would be if Tasha hadn't been paying attention, if she hadn't trusted her gut and called for help despite my protests. I think about where I'd be now if she'd stayed quiet, if she'd minded her own business like so many people do. Would Kyle have eventually hurt me physically? Would I have disappeared one day, become one of those women on the news whose families say they never saw it coming? I'll never know, and I'm grateful I'll never have to find out. 20 minutes changed everything. 20 minutes between Tasha typing that warning on my phone and police arriving at the salon. 20 minutes where I had to choose between defending my relationship and accepting that I was in danger. I almost chose wrong, but someone else chose right for me, and that choice saved my life. If this story shook you, please subscribe for more real stories about recognizing danger, finding strength, and the people who save us when we can't save ourselves. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because your support means everything. And if something in your relationship feels wrong, if someone's love feels more like control, trust that feeling and reach out for help. You deserve to feel safe.